Welcome to It Matters Radio's spoken word broadcast with hosts Monica Brinkman and Kenneth Weene. It Matters Radio brings you the very best with a caring guest-focused atmosphere, hot topics, and meaningful conversation. Let's join Ken and Monica as we bring you today's It Matters Radio.
Ken, how are you this evening?
I am great, Monica. How are you doing?
I could be better. I'm so excited about our shows and the variety that we're going to be presenting to people in our new times. It's just wonderful. I'm enjoying
Yeah, yeah, I think we're moving on up.
it.
Yeah.
We are.
I will say there is one small negative for me, which is that Kerry and I don't get to interact as much because
No.
we're not on calls together, but we'll work on that.
Yeah.
But
We might have a special show with all of us. Who knows?
yeah, exactly. At least Punky and you get to interact with me. And
That's right. Yeah.
Uh,
Punky went
but
to
now
sleep.
I just want to make sure our audience know that now on Sundays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, which of course would be noon out in the Pacific, and folks, you can get your world clock and figure out where you are from there.
Yeah.
Uh, but 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, we're going to do the It Matters music show
Yeah.
for our interviews
Yes.
and individual guests.
Yeah.
And at 7 p.m., we're going Eastern Time, which means, of course, 4 p.m. in Pacific Time. We're going to be doing spoken word, which is kind of neat for me because I get even less of a time limit now. So I can have more than one guest, which I love. In
Yes.
fact, today we have two guests, two very different, very interesting guests, Monica, but I'll get to them in a minute. And then, of course, I wanted to mention that our Indie European music show is 7 p.m.
Mhm.
Eastern Time.
That's Monday through
On
Saturday.
Monday. Oh, it's going to be all 6 days now?
Yes, 6 days now.
6 days now. Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
I'm impressed. We're growing.
we are. And people who are wondering, well, you're on indie music. What the heck's that? This is a place where you get to listen to all kinds of genres of music. I mean, we have rock, we have rap, we have country,
Mhm.
hip hop, folk, and jazz, anything you could think of, even classical music.
And from all over the world, too.
Yes, including the United States. I mean, it's all over the world. And
Mhm.
what I adore about it is you get to actually vote on the songs every day. You come in, you listen to the songs, and you go and vote for one or two or how many songs you really like that day.
Right. Now, I got to tell you, folks, those songs then get played at a special show, which is
It's
which
a
show?
it's a European top 20 music chart. So out of the hundreds and hundreds of songs that people vote on,
Hmm.
those that of course get the most votes make it to the top 20
And they get played on what day?
on
That's
Fridays.
that's the Friday show.
Yes.
Now, folks, you might get an email from Punky
Yes.
telling you that she chooses the music and that you should send her sardines in order to get your song played. But that's not true.
No.
No,
No.
you just go and vote. Uh,
Yeah, she's
but
bad.
you can go to itmattersradio.com and sign up to get Punky's emails.
Mhm.
And she's always got interesting things to share from her litter box.
Yeah, she just adores it. In fact, there was one that probably some people just already see, maybe yesterday or so, um, from Punky. So I hope they read that. It tells you all about our shows and all the links. And she must have heard you, Ken. There she is.
She always comes. She always out. What she heard was sardines.
Yes. Where
Now,
are they?
folks, there's a little difference in the way the podcasts are being handled. the podcasts are now going to be on YouTube under It Matters Radio,
Yes.
and there'll be music, spoken word, and the indie music, indie European music. So
Exactly.
sure and check those out, and please share, especially share the podcast. It's great because you if you like the guests today or you like the music earlier today, whatever, you can share that podcast link and people can enjoy It Matters Radio anytime, any place where they have a computer. Although, unless you have a self-driving car, please don't watch in the car.
Yes.
Like, I think. Okay. Now, today, Monica, I have two fascinating guests. The first is an author, and she wrote this book called Death by Diploma. It's a murder mystery.
Ooh.
And when we get to her, I know you're going to be playing her book trailer by way of introduction.
Yes.
And I'm just going to let people know ahead that our second guest today is a technology guru who is going to be talking about things like your safety in the world of technology. So we have a couple fascinating topics.
Absolutely. I just
So-
can't wait.
So, Funky, if it's okay with you, can we start by playing this great book trailer for Death by Diploma by Kelley Kaye?
Okay, here we go.
Hi, Kelley, and welcome to It Matters Radio. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Ken and Monica. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Kelly.
Now, Kelley, you were a school teacher, a high school English teacher, right?
That's right, for 20 years.
Okay. And I know, having taught a little bit of public school myself and grown up in a school teaching family, that you had lots of problems and mysteries and all kinds of things to deal with, but nothing, I hope, quite like the stuff that goes on in Death by Diploma, your book. No murders, right?
No murders. No murder. Well, that's not no murders that I personally had to solve.
Yeah, that's
But,
what
but yes, that's no. That's the weirdest thing that ever happened to me as a teacher, as far as scary like that, I guess, was a kid who came into my classroom very soon after 9/11 with a mask on and
Ooh.
started throwing desks around the classroom and ran back out. And this was this was in Colorado. So of course, no, I take it back. It wasn't right after 9/11. It was right after Columbine. Sorry.
Columbine is even worse.
Oh, wow.
And that took place in Colorado, right? Columbine is in Colorado. So
Yes.
we felt very close to very close to that to begin with. And so very soon after that, there's this stupid kid who went to jail, I'm pretty sure.
I imagine he spent some time in some kind of program, obviously lacking judgment, but no murders. Okay. Now, the other thing, I obviously you taught English, and the reason I know that is that your teacher Sleuth, who is the heroine of this great novel, Death by Diploma, is an English teacher who loves Shakespeare.
Yeah.
See, now, I could make believe I'm an English teacher,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think I'd have that ready Shakespeare wit that you use. I love the banter between your teachers. So first thing, folks, and this is not a spoiler, this is an encouragement. If you like Shakespeare, and I like Shakespeare, but I'm not a Shakespeare scholar, but if you like Shakespeare and this book, it's got all these great Shakespeare quotes, and you're not told right off what the quote is from. So you can try and, wait a minute, now, where did I, oh, come on, oh, Kelley, tell me. So that's one of the fun things about reading this book. I enjoyed that.
Awesome. Yeah, it's I cannot quote Leslie Parker, the older character in the book, is better than anyone I've ever met, like any real people that I've ever met, as far as being able to call up the quote just right off the top of her head. I can't do that. I'm going to tell you right now. I have some friends that are a lot closer to Leslie's talent than that, but nobody, I don't know anybody that can just call. Even one of my editors for this book she has a master's degree in Shakespeare, and I'm pretty sure she couldn't do it.
Wait a minute, tear this up here, throw it away. That was my list of Shakespeare quotes that I was going to throw at you.
Oh God, you can throw some. I'm just not sure that I'm going to be as good as Leslie as answering you.
Methinks the lady does protest too much.
I do. She does. Yeah.
So we don't want to do any spoilers. This is a murder mystery.
Right.
We're not going to tell you folks anything about who the murderer is or the plot or anything, but these are very interesting characters because they're real. They're school teachers, they're school kids, their parents. They're the people that you can believe. It's like Punky's a real cat. I'm not a real person. Monica is. I make believe, but Punky is a real cat. So if you tell a cat story and you use Punky as your model, it's going to come across as like a real cat. And these are real people.
Yes. Okay. They're combinations of real people.
What I was going to ask you, did you use people out of your teaching experience to come up with your characters, your teachers, your parents?
Well, okay. Let me qualify. Yes, I did, but only in the way that there's only one character in the whole book that's actually kind of based on an experience from a real person. But the character isn't really like this person, and the experience isn't the same. Like, okay, this is not a spoiler. There's one teacher in the book who has a rumor that has followed her for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based on a teacher that I knew who had to deal with a rumor. I met this teacher when I was a student, and then I worked with this teacher when I was a teacher, and she had a rumor that dogged her for her entire career. And so that's the only thing that I would say is a really specific
reference.
Yes. But otherwise, like, okay, the lounge lizards, I guess you get that right at the beginning, right? The coaches, the group of coaches, that's a real thing too.
Yeah.
That's an actual group at the high school where I taught. So the coach, but otherwise they're all kind of stereotypes, right? You've got sort of a typical coach that's a little crude, and you've got a typical librarian that's pretty uptight, and they're definitely stereotypes. I like to think that I have given each character enough unique characteristics to kind of help them rise above the stereotype and make them a character that the reader can enjoy or appreciate or even relate to while still enjoying the stereotype.
Yeah. Well, I found them much better than stereotypes, and I think you've created real characters. So now you were a teacher. Now you're at home writing. This is your first published novel, I believe. Is there another on the way?
I am 32 pages into the second book in the series right now. I'm still really trying to market this one. So a lot of my time has been spent trying to garner reviews and get things moving as far as this book goes. But yes, there's a second on the way. I have ideas for many of those, and I write in other genres as well.
Okay.
That I'm working on.
Now, you use the name for the book, your authorial name, your pen name, is Kelley Kaye, Kaye. So, folks, if you're going to go on Amazon to buy this book, you want to look for Kelley, Kelley, Kaye. Lots of E's, like my name.
Right. And people always forget the E in my first name, and then the last name is actually my middle name, but with an E added. So. Right.
So if you're seeing, by the way, folks, a name up, this is Kelly's husband's name. We are not breaking some transgender barrier here. Kelley is happily married, and her husband's first name is James. Just to make sure we're clear about that.
Right.
Now, Kelley, you have another cause that you're also very involved in, and that is a neuromuscular disease. Could you tell us a little about that?
Sure. When I was 24 years old, which is a long time ago, 1994, in April of 1994 was my second year of teaching. And I started to get, I woke up one morning and I couldn't see very clearly. I had sort of this kind of this weird double vision. And then I was numb. Like I had pins and needles, like when your arm falls asleep or whatever, that my whole right side felt that way. Oh. And it was right down the midline. It was my entire right side. I could feel on my head and my shoulders and all the way down. So I started, I went to the doctor and I started getting all these tests. Nobody knew what was going on with me. I was tested for HIV and for lupus and for pregnancy and good Lord, ALS. Like 15 different tests, and the tests were all ruled out. And so one of the tests I had was for multiple sclerosis, MS. And at the time, it's still a difficult disease to diagnose. But at the time, they used spinal taps to diagnose it, which I don't recommend.
No.
As a test for anyone to take, I don't recommend it at all. But anyway, no fun. I had a spinal tap, and it was negative to test for MS, and it was negative. So I thought, right? I thought, oh, well, that's great. But then it still didn't go away, the numbness and the double vision. So I went back to Colorado because this was in California. My first teaching job was in Lake Tahoe, and I went back to Colorado for more tests, and they finally did an MRI, which was really in the beginning stages at that time. It wasn't wasn't the definitive yet. And that did indeed say, yes, you have lesions on your brain that show MS. Because MS is an autoimmune disease where your nerve insulation, the insulation on your nerve fibers, it's like, think of a cable, think of a radio cable, and you know how they have the rubber covering? All right, so the insulation gets eaten away. Your body decides that it doesn't like the insulation, myelin. It's called myelin, and it starts to eat it away, and that disrupts the message, whatever message that your central nervous system does. And so, anyway, that was my diagnosis. That was 22 years ago, and here I am today.
That's remarkable.
Still functioning well, still being creative and happily married, but fighting MS.
Yes, every day. I have a lot of nerve damage, places with permanent nerve damage. I've had some really bad exacerbations with MS in the past. I kind of have a better handle on it now, I think, through diet and exercise and stress, like doing things to not be so stressed. That's part of the reason I'm not teaching anymore.
Teaching's not a good profession to go with something like MS for two reasons. One, the stress is terrible, and the other is kids will tend to try and take advantage of anything that they perceive as a weakness on the teacher's part.
You know what's interesting though? I hate to interrupt, but I disagree. I found actually that because I was real straightforward about what was going on. I hated having, like, when I first was diagnosed, people treated me differently, right? Like it's like cancer. Like you hear someone has cancer and you whisper it, cancer, and they kind of tiptoe around you and walk around you, and I didn't like that. So I just started saying, look, this is what I have. This is what it's about. This is what I'm doing to deal with it. I'm no different than I was before. I haven't changed at all. Except for physically, I've got some limitations that I didn't have before. But so anyway, I used to talk to students. I gave a speech, an informational speech in my speech classes about multiple sclerosis. And I spoke through the MS Society. The National MS Society is the biggest organization in the world that deals with this. And I spoke about it all the time. And I found that kids, this is true just in general, if you are straightforward with them and
they respect that. Yes.
They respect that. And so when I needed time, when I said, hey, it's a bad day, I'm having a hard time, they were great. They were great.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that was your experience, and says something good about our kids today.
Yes,
that maybe
it does.
we tend to forget that they do have good sides. So you mentioned the National MS Society. Maybe you could suggest a couple websites that our audience could go to learn more about MS.
Of course. Actually, I would say the National MS Society website itself has links to every other possible permutation of the disease that you can imagine. Plus, a lot of people that have MS or have questions about MS. There are thousands of links to the chapters where people live, all of that stuff. And that's just NMSS. It stands for National Multiple Sclerosis Society. NMSS.org.
NMSS.org.
Yes.
Okay, got that, folks? NMSS.org.
Yes, and that's the definitive. I did my volunteer work I do through them. I used to speak through them.
You mentioned local chapters, and one of the things that in my career as a psychologist before I took up hosting radio shows and writing books and all this fun stuff, I would have people come in who had various autoimmune disorders, such as MS, And I would always tell them one of the best things to do is find a local organization or group so that you can have support from people who are dealing with the same issues. Was that a recommendation you'd make as well?
Absolutely. We have it's the National MS Society has local chapters in small towns, even all over, and you can go anywhere that you want. There are also several different, not necessarily local, but through the MS Society, places you can go. And I volunteer. I'll give an example. I volunteer 4 hours a week for a helpline called MS Friends, and that is just it's a helpline that's open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to midnight Eastern time. So what's that? 6 a.m. to whatever every day, and it's staffed by volunteers who have MS. So if you are a person with MS that wants to just talk to someone that can relate, that's the hardest thing about, I'm sure, a lot of autoimmune diseases that you find is that a lot of times they're hard to see. It's hard to see when you look at me that there's anything wrong with me, and people who haven't been involved with it don't really understand it. So there's peer counseling programs, there's this MS Friends, there are support groups that you can go to. There are resources for people that need psychiatric help that the local chapter can lead a person to within their area.
Right.
There's all sorts of resources.
Okay, so folks, that website again is www.mn, as in Nancy, M as in Mary, S as in Sam, S as in Sam.org. Okay, and we're going to use her pen name, Kelley Kaye, and Kelley is the author of this book, Death by Diploma. That's her first novel. There's another one already underway. And Kelley, yeah, you've got a copy too, right? Yes. Love the cover. Great, education and murder combined together. Kelley, you got a great shirt on that people can't see right now because of the way. Yeah, there you go. I guess there are never enough books, and that's from a quote from John Steinbeck. Yeah, one of my favorite authors, and I take it one of yours.
I think East of Eden is probably one of the most perfect books ever written. I don't know if that's... I used to teach, the one that I taught all the time was Of Mice and Men.
Of course.
And I taught that to sophomores my whole entire career, and I love to read it to them. I was into reading to students all the time. I still cry at the end every single time. I cry every single time. Of Mice and Men and To Kill a Mockingbird, those are two that I read to students. But East of Eden is, his ability to put together words in a way that's not pretentious and not too journalistic and not too flowery.
And yet reach right into your gut. Yeah, I agree. Wonderful author. As are you.
So I can aspire. I could only aspire to something like him. He's incredible.
So, do you have a website where people can learn more about you? Or?
I do have a website, and it's under my maiden name. So see, I write under Kelley Kaye is for the murder mysteries. I write some young adult as well. That's under my maiden name, which is Kelley Kay Bowles. And then I write nonfiction under my married name, which is Gussick. But my website is under my maiden name. So it's www.kelleykbowles.com. And I'll spell that because no one ever spells it right. Kelley, Kelley, Kay, no E there. Okay, that's just for the.
Okay.
And then Bowles is Bowles. One word, kelleykbowles.com.
And of course, your books are available on Amazon. And if people, I guess are they all grouped under one author page on Amazon?
I do have an Author Central page that has, I am in several anthologies, several nonfiction anthologies. Those are all on my Author Central page. And then this book is on my Author Central page. I don't know. Yes, I don't know, but I'm not sure how you find that. I'm trying to think, because I think it's under Kelley Bowles. I think my Author Central page is Kelley Bowles, but this is Kelley Kaye.
Oh, I'm going to tell you an easy way to find that page, folks. Here's the way you do it. You go look for Death by Diploma, the book that we're talking about today. You look for this book on Amazon, and it'll have the author's name, which will be Kelley Kaye, Kaye. But when you click on that name, it will take you to Kelley's author's page.
Yes.
Fabulous. Yeah, no, and it comes right up when you put the title in. Like my friends they all like, how do we find you when we want your book? Because they were saying, oh, is it Gussick? Is it Bowles? What is it? I'm like, just write the title.
It's a great title, and it's a unique title.
I'm going to try and do them all. All of the upcoming books are going to be with some sort of alliterative title. So, and
like
they will
have D&D.
Yeah, D&D, and then so right now I'll give all you watchers a little preview that that's like that can be the first to know. The one I'm working on right now has a working title of Poison by Punctuation.
And I know many an author who would say, "Oh, I understand that one."
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I know many editors that would say that.
So they all will be. They'll have all the titles will be alliterative, and they'll have something to do with education and something to do with murder or crime. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
Like say I want to do lessons in larceny, so that would not be murder necessarily, but still.
It would be a crime. Yes.
Still alliterative crime.
Still an alliterative crime. Yes, that's right.
I love it. Very, very clever idea. Wish I'd thought of it. Well, folks, we're out of time, but I do want to mention the title of this book again. It's Death by Diploma, and it is by our wonderful guest today, Kelley Kaye. And as you understood, it's also Kelley Kay Bowles and Kelley
Gussick.
Yes. All these wonderful names, and they're all pretty names.
Oh,
they're nice names. They flow like the title.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you very much for joining us, Kelley.
Yes,
Kelley.
Thank you so much. Love mystery, so I'm gonna have to take a look at that one.
Oh, good. Well, I'm excited. I hope you like it very much. And you can get this, just so you know, you can get this on Barnes and Noble too, and Kobo and all of those. The publisher is primarily digital, so you can get a print copy anywhere you want. But it's also available in all the digital markets.
Okay,
yes.
That sounds great.
Mention that. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks you for joining us on
You too.
Matters Radio.
Bye, Kelley.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Micah, that was a great discussion of a lovely, enjoyable book.
Yes, it was. I think it's something that is going to be exciting for people, and I also enjoyed her talk about MS. I'm glad people are coming out about that. So very informative, very much so. So
now, my second guest today is somebody very different. He's not talking about his book, but about technology, computers, and computer security and technological security in the world ahead of us. His name is Kevin Coleman, and he has served as the chief strategist at the Claremont Technology Group that was named Businessweek's 44th fastest growing company. And he was also chief strategist at the internet icon company Netscape during a period when they grew 65,000 1,000%,
Wow.
and did two of the largest mergers in the history with AOL and Time Warner. He's spoken before Congress on technology issues and opportunities, including IP theft by China. And he's spoken at the United Nations on emerging technologies and their impact on the infrastructure of developing countries. You can find his website at www.kcinsights.com. So, Monica, let's bring Kevin Coleman into It Matters Radio.
Okay. Hi, Kevin.
Greetings. How are you?
Oh, just fine. I'm so happy that you could join us today. Very, very interesting topic. I can't wait.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, Kevin, you're talking about the cutting edge of today. Everything from the security when people go to use a bank card or make a transfer online or anything like that, up to having your emails hacked, up to the government using computers to control atomic weapons. I mean, all of it, okay? But right now, in the world in which we are living at this very moment in time, one of the biggest topics is using private email servers.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, but
I knew you were, Monica. So I'm going to start by asking you, not the political or ethical or legal issues,
no.
but is there really a difference between the security that I have using my email server and, say, what a government person might using a government? Is it really that big a difference?
And you're going to hate the answer. It depends.
Oh, I love
Some
it.
Some government organizations are very, very, very well protected, while others haven't really made the leap into the continuously connected world we now live in. It's not just a difference between the commercial versus the private email servers. There are some commercial servers that aren't as secure as some of the private servers that I've seen out and operational. So this is a very complex topic, and unfortunately one that very few people take the time to understand because of the technical complexities.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, then let me, now obviously we hope that, for example, the military and the State Department, to put it in context, and the White House, that they're using the best and most up-to-date servers and the best protected systems. We can hope that anyway. But when it comes time, when you get that email, whatever server it's from, emails a way into the server and into the, like we have an It Matters Radio website, and it has its own email addresses. Now, is that a way into that website, or are those two things kind of basically separate functions?
Well, they're separate functions, but that doesn't mean that they're isolated. Let me give you an example. The server that you use to basically present the web pages that you have may also house your email software. So in that case, if they get in through some mechanism via email, they may be able to access your website as well. Now mine, I have my website totally separate from my email account.
So that you have that level of protection.
I have a different level of protection. The isolation gives me a different level of protection that I actually feel is necessary.
It's probably wise. Yeah.
Now, do
What
you go online and bank and
Yes,
transfer
I
money?
do some transactions online, but unlike many, I have a suite of security products, including encryption, that gives me a reasonable level of protection against the
Uh-huh.
threats that are out there today.
Mhm. So, what do you say to people who use services like, let's say PayPal, which is probably the most commonly used service?
I think PayPal is a very large organization. They're very well managed from what everything I see. And I think that they probably have better security than many of the small community banks, because quite frankly, the small community banks just don't have the resources necessary to stay up to date with all the latest pieces of malware that are coming onto the internet. Last year I did a study, and based on some security companies' analysis that they put together, did you realize that there was 20 new pieces of malware released about every second?
Wow. Oh my God. How do they keep up with that?
Well, that's just it. Just think about that. If you had what's called a definition or a signature for all those different pieces of malware, and you put it in your antivirus software, if you scanned every file on your computer for all those different signatures or identifying factors, it would take forever.
Yes.
Right.
Okay? And in order to be protected, you've got to do something a little bit different than just malware or an antivirus software. That's where the firewalls come in that pretty much limit the ability to get into your system, period.
Oh.
Okay. Now, most of our viewers are not particularly technologically savvy. They're like me. We may have a website. We certainly use email. We may go online to buy things. What are some of the things that people should keep in mind to protect themselves online? Besides the obvious one, which is, no, folks, that nice widow from Somalia really doesn't have £1 million in a British bank to give you. So don't send her your information. But beyond that, Kevin, what are some of the more reasonable kinds of advice you might want to give?
Well, first of all, let me piggyback on your advice, and that is, unless you play the lottery, you can't win it.
Yes.
All the fake emails around, you won the Argentine lottery, click here and you'll be connected to somebody to take your information so we can transfer the money. That's not going to happen. So that's the first thing, and that is just regular common sense goes a long way to securing yourself on the internet. The second thing, as I mentioned, is the antivirus software and keeping that up to date, as well as having a firewall and keeping that up to date. The third piece that you have to keep up to date is the software that's running on your computer. Now, not too many people realize this, but I have never seen a piece of software that didn't have errors in it. There was one study that suggests that for every 10,000 lines of code, there's one unknown error left after all testing is done.
Makes sense
One
to
popular
me.
piece of but one popular piece of software has 50 million lines of code. So if you do the math, that's one heck of a lot of errors that are sitting in there.
Yes.
Some of those errors can be exploited by criminals and hackers and rogue nation states or whoever is looking to go out and do dastardly actions over the internet. That's where we get into the problem, and that's where the antivirus software, the firewall software, and updating your system continuously is so effective.
Yeah, I know my husband was, last year, a victim of identity fraud. And we have no idea how they got the information because it's not something we put on the internet. But I guess if somebody wants to get information on you, they're going to do it.
Well, you know what, Monica, it isn't just what you put on the net. It's what everybody else puts on the net. For example, a couple of years ago, as I recall, Target, big department store chain, was hacked. And I imagine we don't hear about all of those, do we, Kevin? Where these banks and companies and credit card companies and whatever get hacked.
The larger security breaches have to be reported under the law. So you hear about a lot of the large ones, but it's the smaller companies that, one, are most vulnerable, and two, have the least capabilities to detect that they've been hacked. Okay, and the fact that once that it is determined they've been hacked, I saw one study that said the average small or medium-sized business goes out, about 60% of them goes out of business within 2 years after a major breach.
Well, I would think so, because you're already talking about somebody who's kind of in a precarious position, and now they may have some liabilities that they want to avoid. So it makes perfectly good sense that they would work their way out of business. I've been wondering, now you have talked a lot about at the governmental level, like to Congress and to the United Nations and places like that. One of the things that seems to me, we talk a lot about war and weaponry and such on in our national dialogue, but we don't talk a lot about the vulnerability of our own weapons to being turned against us. We have all these drones being equipped with guns and things. How difficult would it be for, say, a hacker in Iraq on the ground to take over that drone that is flying, hopefully at an ISIS target, and turn it around and have it fly back and attack the American base from which it's being, well, not that a base is, of course, in Nevada, but the American base it's supposed to be protecting?
It would not be a trivial task by any stretch of the imagination. What I fear more about the drones is them being able to disrupt the signal that is controlling the drones, so the drone really doesn't know, it basically gets confused and doesn't know what to do, and either crashes or falls in the hands of our enemies so that they can actually tear it apart and learn from it.
Yeah, that is a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, when that was the thing when those two small longboats basically were taken by the Iranians not too long ago. And the first thing the Iranians did was they grabbed everything electronic. And while they're treating the sailors reasonably nicely, they're not beating them up, they're giving them dinner, but they're looking at this, everything from their cell phones and their own cameras to every piece of equipment on each boat to see what they can learn.
Absolutely. And, it's that type of a scenario that concerns me the most, because it's that scenario that is the hardest to protect against.
Yeah. One of the things that fascinated me was when I learned that in a lot of the last step in launching missiles and things like that, the old Cold War system is still being used, that they haven't updated the computers and things because they weren't connected and aren't connected to anything outside. And so therefore they cannot be hacked. So it's
that is correct.
Yeah.
And that, in my opinion, that is a very, very smart approach to that problem of the very complex and mission critical systems and protecting those.
Yeah. So ultimately, that last step has to be done by a human. You get the code from Washington, you think, or whatever it is, but before you actually put it in and turn the key, there's more than one human, so that they actually get to interface and discuss and decide whether it's legitimate and what should be done, etc. And it is a protection.
There are multiple safeguards that are built into that system, so the American public should feel confident, even though this was built, back decades ago, that this is probably one of the most secure mechanisms that could ever be conceived in order to really house the critical infrastructure that we have to protect our nation.
Well, that's good to know. Wonderful news.
Now, I don't know if you know this about me, Kevin, and Monica does. I've become very involved in some stuff going on in South Sudan, which of course is one of the most troubled countries in the world. And I'm actually involved in helping somebody from there,
Yes.
one of the lost boys, to write his memoir. And it brings up, because he's also trying to think about where his country is going and the next step. In a lot of countries, the idea has been to leapfrog. For example, they're not going to put up telephone cable in South Sudan. They're going right to, cell phone kind of technology. And when it finally gets to the point that everybody there can have a phone, it will be wireless phone. Now, because they're trying to leapfrog the technology, they're also going to be leapfrogging the education. My question is, to what degree should countries like the United States, Germany, even India, which of course has a wonderful technology base, to what degree should those countries be helping places like Somalia, like South Sudan, to develop their educational system in the computer skills? Is that a threat or is it a promise?
I like to call them issues and opportunities, and it creates both.
Absolutely.
Let me explain something. A couple of years ago, I was asked to teach a program, and I went over and I looked at the materials, the textbook, and everything else that they were using for this program, and it was around technology. Mm-hmm. And it struck me when I looked at the copyright date of the main book. The copyright date was 2 years earlier, which was a reasonably recent publication. Mm-hmm. But if you think about that, you think about all the material that had to be gathered. Somebody wrote it, somebody had to edit it, somebody had to review it, somebody had to buy it, somebody had to produce the book, sell it, and everything else. And that the subject matter in the book was probably at least 5 years old.
Absolutely.
Think about what we were talking about 5 years ago. Were we talking about 3D printers printing houses and cars? No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the traditional methods that we're employing and structures around education, I think, need to be updated in order to keep pace with the magnitude of technological advancement that we're seeing today.
Oh, I think, absolutely. We need to have technological advancement in the presentation of educational material. When I was in college, it was considered very cutting edge that the professors would Xerox recent articles, and we would buy a set of recent articles. So we were reading stuff that had been written within the last year in class. And that was considered cutting edge. Today, I can get the stuff online that was published this morning. Yeah. And I think it's very important that students be given computers to work with, taught how to use them from day one in school. I think kindergarten is probably a little too late. And the material and learning to learn from a computer. I think one of the things that's very important is not only should the kids be being given the computers very young, but they should learn how to use that computer in learning. The same way that we in our day learned how to take notes out of a book and how to, use a book as a tool.
But what's interesting about that is some of the kids are more highly skilled at using the computer than the teachers are.
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't that the truth?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to tell you a great story I think you'll appreciate. When I taught college classes, very early on, I realized that a lot of my students, I was teaching psychology, and a lot of them had not any notion of what a computer was. And I wanted them not only to have the ability to use a computer, but I wanted them to have that model in their mind because it helped me to teach them psychology and learning and things like that. So I would require every student in my intro classes to take a class. I would set it up for them in the computer lab so that they would at least have a rudimentary knowledge. I couldn't give them a whole course because then I couldn't teach the psychology course, but I would arrange for them to have a class and do an assignment and things like that. Well, I had one student who said to me, "I don't need to take that class, Dr. Weene. I'm never going to use a computer. I don't need it for my work." So I said to her, "Well, what is your career choice?" And she said, "Well, I'm going to be a kindergarten teacher." So I said, "Well, I'm going to give you a choice then. You're right, a kindergarten teacher, you should have a choice." I said, "You can take the class, or instead, I'll take you over to my friend's house, and his 4-year-old will teach you how to use the computer."
It's so
Yeah,
I'm not sure whether you realize this or not, but if you look at it, the first online service, came on in I think it was 1980. It was called CompuServe.
Yes.
And I think it was 1980 or 1981, I bought my first computers, and I actually had signed up shortly after that for the online service, CompuServe. That's how long we've been doing this. Yet, when was the massive population explosion going online? That didn't take place until we were, the late 90s when I was at Netscape.
Right.
We created the ability then to do this for the average individual rather than the complexities. I can still remember my first email address was an IP address.
Right. And now, of course,
what's the age?
Now, of course, we have these things like Facebook, the social media, where people can interact, and they don't even have to use an email address, and it's like a constant presence. I can leave a note for Monica on her Facebook page, or remind people to visit the It Matters Radio Facebook page, and things like that. And we can do all these things, and it's wonderful. We're making the world so much closer, so much more available to one another. But it is, the technology is amazing, and I'm waiting, probably in my lifetime, I will see it where we no longer need a computer, where we'll have chips that are in our body using our own neural networks to interface. What do you think, Kevin? Do you think we're going to get to that?
I think we're going to get there, but I want to go back to what you talked about, and that's the social media and all the great things that social media brought with it. And the reason when I speak, I talk about issues and opportunities, because with all these opportunities, there comes an issue with social media. There was a study that was done that looked at an individual who basically was an executive at a company that sponsored provided the research dollars funding for this study. And what they did was they studied this social media account, and they created this software to monitor it. And it analyzed, all the posts and everything else that he was doing, and all the information that came with it. And it created a forecast that said, at this date and time, this location has, or this individual has a 68% likelihood of being here.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went and had a greeting party, and they greeted the individual in order to show the validity of their research,
Right.
that we are sharing way too much online, because then if somebody's stalking us, they could wait for us.
Mm-hmm.
Or if somebody looks at this and you post, hey, I'm having a great dinner and drinks with so-and-so at XYZ Bar and Grill, they know you're not home.
Hey, okay, let's go burgle the place. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So we need to be a little bit more cautious about what we share online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very true, especially if our lifestyles lend themselves. I mean, if you have nothing and you live in a gated community, et cetera, letting the world know you're not home is a little bit safer than if you live in a mansion.
I know, I never.
But to go back to something you said, I just saw a very interesting product. It was a flexible circuit board, okay, that they actually could put this new breed of integrated circuits built into the board and that kind of stuff. And they showed it as almost like a Band-Aid that they put on the skin, so that this person could wear it. And basically, that was almost in a very simple computer that, gets to what you were talking about. The computer is actually embedded in the individual.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pretty close to being there. We've been putting chips in our pets for years.
Right.
And I actually just saw, I just saw one individual said, no, I don't want it in a pet. I want it in me and my kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. But you're right. Every time we interface in this way, we also give up a certain amount of privacy, secrecy, isolation, something like that.
Yeah, I can't.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't want a chip in me. I'm sorry. Where people can just follow me wherever I am all the time. No, that's like Big Brother is there.
Yep, but on the other hand, Monica, let me ask you this. Let's say that as a radio host, you were invited by the government to do a visit with other radio hosts and video people to a war zone. Okay? And they said to you, there's a certain risk of being abducted. So you have your choice. We can implant a chip under your skin that will allow, or will pull out that filling and put it in under there, and that will allow us to find you and keep track of you.
Well, just so they could take it out when I was through.
Okay, you just want to guarantee you can get it taken out.
Yeah, I don't want my privacy.
But you can trust that guarantee, because are you going to be able to watch them take it out, and that dentist really is taking it out?
Yeah, you don't. No, you'd have to trust them. Yeah, interesting.
And the question is, whom do we? And this takes us right back to the beginning of this very interesting discussion about security, because the information age and computers and all of this wonderful technology is giving these great opportunities, but it also is raising many issues, particularly around personal privacy and security and the ability to maintain your identity. One of the things that drives me crazy, though, and this is something Kevin, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but have you ever, maybe you have, whenever I go and let's say I go online to book a hotel room and I do a search and I say, okay, I'm going to go to, I don't know, let's say Palm Springs, which is one of my often destinations, and I book the room. All of a sudden, all over the social media and in my emails, and every time I go to a website that's connected to whatever these things are that are doing it, I get ads for hotels in Palm Springs. Now, I've already booked it, but I don't get an ad for a restaurant or an attraction or even road services or anything I might now want to use to augment my trip. And I was wondering, do you have any idea why, given that have that ability to identify what I've looked for, nobody has come up with the idea how to upsell me?
Actually, they have, and there's some sites that started to do this, but there's a big issue. And the issue is this. If, say, for example, you go to XYZ Suites and you book that,
right.
If they turn around and go out and tell the community that, that where you're going to be staying, that you're going to be staying there, mm-hmm. that gets into a privacy violation. Mm-hmm. They have just disclosed very specific personal information about you. Right. Now, okay, if they say you're going to be here during this time to this time, let's go back to what we talked about before.
Oh, yeah, no, that would be a major, major threat for invasion, for, a home invasion, a stalking, and things like that.
Right. Now, in order for, that community out there, say in Palm Springs, to tell you about all the opportunities you have out there, they have to know when you're going to be there because things change over time. Mm-hmm. The concert series might be over. There might be some type of a show in town or that you have interest in. They can't give you that information unless they know when you're getting there and when you're leaving, so that it can be encapsulated. And that mm-hmm. becomes a very, very, very touchy issue for a lot of consumers. So they've really shied away from that.
Well, I would think they could come up with a way around it, especially in a place like that where you have a tourist industry, where each hotel could just simply access the information for you, because they obviously they can send you an email saying, hey, you might want to know about these things. But it strikes me that, there's nothing upselling, and they should come up with a way of doing it. Maybe if it
was me,
yeah.
And let's roll this back. Say, I'm doing a strategy for this company back when I was at Netscape. I would have said, look, when they book the reservation and you send back the confirmation, mm-hmm. I would have a list of things that are going on. Okay, first of all, you have whether it's a business trip or pleasure. Mm-hmm. So you know whether there's going to be, spare time or not, whether or not to conclude this.
Right.
Second thing, if it's pleasure, I would have a list of things that are going on in that area during the period of time that you just booked to stay.
Absolutely. And they're not doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not doing that.
Well, campsites do that, I noticed.
Yeah, campsites do.
They always tell you what's going on in the area, what festivals or anything, or restaurants to eat at. So
in the confirmation or when you get there?
On their websites.
Oh,
they tell you they'll just have, whatever date that you're looking at, it'll pop up anything that's going on,
Well, anyway, I think that's going to be a new direction for marketing and for use of the web, because I'm always amazed how seldom I find the web being intrusive into my life. It may seem strange, but I always get up in the morning expecting to see this whole list of sales calls, and they're not there. And I'm delighted for that, but I'm also surprised people haven't figured out how to send them to me.
Well, let me give you some insights into what's coming down the pike that fits into what you're talking about. We've all heard about the connected car, right? As you're driving, it's connected to the internet. You can do whatever you want, download movies, all this stuff.
Right.
Well, I know the GPS location of that car.
Right, of course.
Okay. So say, for example, I'm driving down the street and it's getting close to lunchtime. I know the time, I know the GPS location, and I can take a look at this and say, hey, a restaurant, if I'm tied into your credit card that you frequent back home, is right down the street, or a restaurant that you frequented when you're here before is right down the street, and there's no waiting.
Right. And what's more, just right now they're having a special. The baby back ribs, $3 off.
Well, let me give you a better one. What happens if you're driving down the street and the tire pressure sensor in your driver's side rear tire detects a gradual deflation?
Right.
What happens if that gets communicated to the dashboard? The dashboard control center communicates it back to the dealership or the maker of the car. They look at the car. They look at what the error that they're getting is. And they look at who is in the immediate vicinity that has that tire, if it needs replaced, and can service you, and sends back a message to your car, and a voice comes on and says, Mrs. Jones, a slight problem has been detected with your driver's side rear tire. Please go down 2 blocks, hang a right, go to the end of the street. Wheels is expecting you.
Right.
That's service.
That is that, and those are the things that I am looking forward, except that there's one little difference. My car, I want it to be self-driving, and I want it to just come on and say, excuse me, Ken, we're taking a short detail to Will's wheels while I get the right rear wheel taken care of. Please go back to reading your book. Well, so, Kevin, it's really been wonderful talking to you today. Folks, in case you forgot, we've been talking with Kevin Coleman, and you can find more of what Kevin has to say at his website, www.kcinsights.com. And Kevin, I hope that you'll join us again, because it's just been so delightful having you share your insights into technology and what's coming and how to protect ourselves here on It Matters Radio.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I hope you come back again, Kevin.
Just let me know when.
Okay,
Great.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Well, Monica, wasn't that a fascinating interview with Kevin?
Oh, I just enjoyed it so much. I mean, there's a million questions I still have. I think we could have gone on for hours.
You know what? Send some of those over to me,
Okay.
and we'll have Kevin back, because, one of the great things about our new format using Vaughn Radio and the way we're doing the show is that we can have people back more often, because we don't have to do a whole segment with one person.
No, we don't.
Now, we can have a couple guests on the show.
Absolutely.
And I love that, because we can even maybe have, like, if there's an immediate topic, like the email issue, we can be talking about it right then and there.
Yeah. Well, I just think there's so many things, insights that he has that we can touch on, and that might help every person who's listening to the show with their security and their privacy. And
Right.
And I want to get into some of the things he spoke about when he met with the government and such. Also,
yeah. And of course, we're going to have a show coming up soon about personal identity theft.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's a biggie. That's a great topic.
Because that happened to my husband.
I know you mentioned that to Kevin.
Yeah.
So, folks, stay with us here at It Matters Radio because we got a lot of good stuff happening. Of course, remember that we now have time change and format change, that we're doing our music interview show here on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, which is noon in the Pacific Time. And we're doing the spoken word show at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Sundays, which of course is 4 p.m. in the Pacific. Right. And of course, we're relying on you to figure out where you are. We're just giving you a couple times to start from.
Absolutely.
And then on 7 p.m. on Eastern Time, Monday through Saturday, we have the Indie European show. And of course, the Friday show is the special one when your votes have been tallied. And Monica play, and of course, Punky play the very, very highest picked songs, the 20 top picked songs.
Yeah, the top 20.
Yeah, and that's kind of cool.
It is.
I love the fact, usually when I was a kid growing up, I'd always listen when I could to the top 20 song shows.
Yeah.
But they all sounded the same because it was top 20 little grouping. Now, you doing a show that covers the world and covers all genre of music. So it really is that. I love that top 20 show because you never know. It might be some heavy metal rock and then a country western, even a piece of classical.
Yeah.
So folks, it's really fabulous music from, again, all over the world.
Yeah, and you vote for the music, and then we bring it to you on Fridays. So it's very unique.
Yep.
And I hope you'll come back again next Sunday at 7 p.m. to be with Ken and I.
In the meantime, please remember to share the podcast, which of course is under It Matters Radio Spoken Word on YouTube.
Yeah.
And yes, please do come back to share with Monica, myself, and Punky. And folks, none of the best things about this show is because we use using such modern technology, you do not have to pay any anchovies to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm closing Punky's ears because she doesn't want to hear that.
I know.
Well, Ken, I will see you next week.
Okay, Monica.
And folks, we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.